Beyond the Scoreboard podcast. It's back. It's better than ever. Well, not really. I mean, you can still see our faces when you're watching live on Lawrence County SportsNet, powered by LCAP. Of course, our get-togethers delivered by Penn Ohio Bottled Water. Give them a call for your bottled water delivery or 3 or 5 gallon jugs of water straight to your home or work. Tim Continenza alongside. I'm James Dotson. It's been a while, Tim, but we're back and ready to go.
Yeah, I'm excited for the winter sports season. It's kind of odd saying it, but if you look outside and you feel the weather, you know it's that time of the year.
Yeah, well, certainly when you look out there today and there's a whole bunch of white stuff all over the ground.
Yeah, my goodness.
We're
it's December and you never know what to expect.
With that in mind, happy holidays in advance. Happy late Thanksgiving as well to everybody out there. And we're thankful to be able to do these live broadcasts for the podcast. It was a little touch and go when we get into football playoffs because we're all over the place, literally. And
yes,
well, guess what? It's going to be that way again here coming up, Tim. With we're going to get the basketball season off on a flying foot.
Yeah, it will be. Just, balls in the air is the best way to put it for us, because we will be everywhere in the county and with both the girls and the boys competition getting started and underway here in December. It's going to be a lot of work, but a lot of fun. Yeah,
it really is. We have our first basketball section broadcast tomorrow. That game will be between Union and Aquinas Academy, the girls, and then a triple header we'll have on Friday. We'll have audio broadcast of Newcastle hosting North Hills, and then a couple of full video crews, Neshannock hosting Our Lady of the Sacred Heart, as well as the county matchup of Union hosting Laurel, as we have a remote guest in as well. Let's bring in Eric Thomas, fresh off of his little run out there in I want to say Hershey. I almost said Hershey there, Eric, but no, the run out in Mechanicsburg. Talk about probably one of the best state championship weekends ever, and you were right there front and center for it.
Yeah, it really was. We had that stretch between. I mean, really, Thursday's games weren't terrible. They were competitive up until probably about halftime or so. That's pretty much all you can ask sometimes with these 6 classes. But it was that stretch on Friday, both games Friday into the early game on Saturday, as absolutely as good as it gets. It was the best stretch of games that we've had since they've gone to 6 classifications by far.
What, 2 games into overtime? Another one that you had a potential field goal at the end to win it, and that was a game-winning touchdown in the last minute. I mean, how do you pick a best one out of the weekend when you have such great games?
The best one, I think, for me personally, I mean, the McDevitt game on Friday was the best, just because I have so many ties to that program and with my family and a lot of friends that have been affiliated with that program, whether it be a coach. Jeff Wechter's a good friend of mine, the head coach. I mean, that was pretty special to see. I didn't get the chance to call their title a couple years ago when they beat Aliquippa, but I did the year before when they lost. Was there, when they lost to Archbishop Boyd both times. So that was pretty sweet to see that. But the game of the weekend by far, I mean, I don't even honestly think it was that close, was the Saturday, the AAA game on Saturday. Walk-off touchdown in overtime, it gets no better than that.
In a state championship game nonetheless as well. Man, it's so lucky you to be able to be a part of that, and lucky us to be able to then drag you right back into the fray here with the basketball season. So here's kind of what we're going to do here today, is we're going to talk we're going to go through all the girls' teams, real briefly, talk about some of the players back, some of the things to watch out for each of the girls' teams. We'll break, and then we'll go into the boys' side of things as well. You can also get some more detailed individual team previews. Those videos, they're not all up yet, but most of them have been posted now on our YouTube channel and on our website. Some video previews for all 8 schools, so all 16 teams as well. Definitely should check those out. And big thanks to all the coaches allowing us to come to their practices here in the preseason, early season, and get a chance to talk with all of them. And one of the teams I think we're going to be talking a lot about this year, let's start up north, boys, with this Wilmington team. How often can we say that you have the program's all-time leading scorer coming back for their senior year? But that's what you have in Leah Crayerup, coming in 1,300 points. That's already a program record. And all she's done this year is average, 22 per game in 3 Mercy Rule victories, Tim. It's This is a team that has a lot of pieces back, including someone who
Yeah.
just hit her 200th career.
Well, that's the exciting part of the, to watch this season is watch her play
Mhm.
and then watch the team develop around her and let's see how far they can take it. Because obviously they have the horse there to build around, and they have done that. So it's just a matter of, on a weekly pace, trying to get a little better each week, as you know. And as you progress deeper into section play and then opportunity in the playoffs, you never know what may happen. I know that's a long way down and we're only in December, but that's how you have to approach it. It's almost on a weekly. How do we improve this week to make us better going forward? And I think that's what, the challenge will be there for the Hounds.
And it is kind of interesting because she scored more points in her sophomore year than she did in her junior year, which kind of shows, Eric, about a team growing around her. And you're seeing that with, Reese Bruckner. She's at 15 points a game through these first couple. Kara Deal's been a nice addition on the offensive front. Alyssa Flick, absolutely lethal from downtown. This is a team that's going to go 9-10 deep, and they're going to press, which is what you need to do to beat Kennedy Catholic, who is, again, going to be the main thorn in the side here this year for the Hounds.
Yeah, and you don't typically see girls teams that can go that deep either. I think that a lot of coaches anymore, James, they really shorten the bench up somewhat, and they go with like 7, maybe max 8 guys or girls on a team. So I think that the fact that they have some depth is is going to be a big deal, especially when you get later in the season. I mean, you're gonna if you are playing this good early in the season, the one thing that I would be afraid of more than anything is the team going to be too good early? And then are they going to play their best basketball too early? And then what happens like when they get later in the season? You can sometimes see that
peak too soon type.
Almost like like almost like they get to a certain point and then you start seeing the other end of it at the wrong time of the year. You're not a team like let's go to the boys real quick just for the sake of the conversation. But when you look at Mohawk last year, what were they in December? And then from January on, I mean that team had potential to be in the Final Four of the state last year. So just you kind of worry about that a little bit, but if you have that kind of depth on your team, that should not be a problem at all.
Yeah, no kidding. You're going 9 or 10 deep. There are some teams we're about to be talking about that don't have 9 or 10 players on their roster, and that's going to be a big part of it. Wilmington defeating Mohawk earlier this week, 79-14, and let's be honest, he had the starters in for about half of each quarter, the second string for not even the rest of the game, and they were still working hard and playing through everything. So real impressive what they were doing. Like I mentioned, a lot of teams don't have even 9 or 10 on the roster. One of them is the 2-time defending WPL champions in the Union Scotties. They are coming in with you lose obviously Kelly Cleaver. She was a big part of the team, big part offensively and defensively. I think that's what gets overlooked is when you have such an athletic 6-footer there, Tim, with what she's done. We've been able to see for the last 4 years of her high school career. But you still have Kylie Frusdorfer, who is knocking on that door. She will almost certainly hit the 1,000-point plateau in tomorrow's game. But there's a great contingency of players on this team. Yes, it's not a very deep bench, only 9 or 10 on the roster again, but most of them are returning players and letter winners from last year.
Experience matters, especially in high school basketball. And when you have someone, like Kelly, who can do so much on the court and they can focus around her and then, like you said, build that other players around her, I think that's going to be key for them. I mean, if they can find, some type of outside shot to go with that, to kind of get that inside-outside game going, that will be huge for them. And defensively, that's something I think when you talk to coaches, most of them will tell you that, and they preach it early to try to build on it throughout the season. And that's something you're going to have to watch. It could be incremental. It could be very small in a sense. You might notice, like in December, they're giving up X amount of points, and then the next month it's, 2 points less, but 2 points less make a big difference when you look at an average for the season.
Absolutely. And I think also, though, and again, in that preview video, they talked about, hey, can we do it defensively. That's what we hung our hat on, but we need to see who the scoring is going to go to. Well, guess what? Kylie Frustorfer, obviously, is going to be the number one scorer, but Mia Pruz has a double-digit game. Hayden Strickler has a double-digit points game. Liv Benedict, Maggie Joseph, each with double-digit points games. Miara Gunn with a 9-point game. So you got 6 players who have had a game already with 9 or more points.
I think that's key, that you're going to have a lot of different options, and that's what you need to develop. And I think what most importantly is how can they challenge the ball off the ball? When they're playing defensively, can you get into the passing lanes? Can you disrupt the offense that you're guarding against? Can you create turnovers and get easy points? This team has that ability. We'll just see how it grows. And that's the defensive side. Can the defense create offense? And we'll see, as the season progresses for Union, if that can happen. But they definitely have the talent level to do it. Like you said, only 9 or 10 deep. So foul troubles will always be something to pay attention to. If they have multiple players in trouble, it's going to be a real challenge to stay in the ball game.
Eric, though, have you heard many teams, especially at the 1A level, that have 3 already committed for Division II, Division III athletics from a 1A program like this? Kylie Frustorfer going to Pitt Johnstown for basketball, Mia Pruz and Addie Nogue, who have already committed for softball, and a couple more who I know are getting D2, D3 looks softball-wise playing on this basketball team.
No, you don't typically see that either. And I think the other problem that teams that play against them are going to have this year, too, especially at the 1A level. And this was really at the forefront. You go back to the football championships. This was a really big factor over the last couple days of the football championships. The teams that have the experience in those games, it really comes to the forefront when it matters the most. I mean, we remember last year, or this even just back in March, we were doing the 1A final at the Pete, and that St. Joe's team came out, and I know that that they're a good team. They have won many games. They've been in big situations before, but they just did not have that little extra something that Union had in that game. And I think that goes a long way, especially the lower the classification that you get. I think that means a big deal going forward.
It absolutely does. And just to close the book on both Wilmington and Union, got to mention those 2 sharpshooters. Kylie Frustorfer now with 177 three-pointers in her career. Crarup on the other end for Wilmington just hit 200 in the second game of the year. She's now at 202 in her career. So a couple of sharpshooters from outside for sure with those 2 teams. I think the front runners, Union for sure, the front runners in 1A. Got to watch her Clareton. They've moved down from 2A. You got Ayanna Wade, who's probably going to end up setting the all-time WPIL scoring record by the time this season ends. But beyond that, I think those are going to be the top 2 teams. Maybe throw in Aquinas, who Union plays tomorrow, as probably the biggest threats. And obviously, it'll be Wilmington against Kennedy Catholic. I have a feeling we'll be going up and covering probably one or both of those games when they pop up there in January and February. Let's pop up a classification to Class 2A. And Neshannock is a team that is always going to be, we're going to be talking about them, especially as long as Coach Grabowski is still there, which, she's only been doing this for 46 years. Here's the fun one, Eric. I want to pick your brain and see if you've heard of this one before. Neshannock won 2 games on the same day this past weekend. They had committed to a tip-off tournament at Lakeview, basically found out that, oh no, we thought it was the previous weekend, not this weekend. We had already committed to a game at Newcastle. So they literally played a game at Lakeview at 2 o'clock, won that game, drove down to Newcastle to play Quaker Valley and won that one too in the same day. Eric, have you ever seen something like that other than the day before the pandemic when they shut everything down?
No, not in the state of Pennsylvania. It happens in other states. In fact, if you go to Kentucky, they play some of their teams that play the semifinal the same day as the championship, right, if you can believe that. So
that's awesome.
That is pretty cool what they do with their Sweet 16. But never heard about that in state whatsoever. How rare is it that teams even play back-to-back nights anymore? It seems like
very seldom now. That used to be a big thing. Years ago, I remember when you used to get games, schools would actually look for games on Saturdays, and they would play Friday, Saturday. One of the reasons behind it, a lot of coaches love the idea of practicing 4 days a week and then playing back-to-back games and having Monday through Thursday get prepared for a Friday, Saturday game. That was really, I mean, when I talked to a lot of coaches that used to schedule that way, or at least try to get, half their schedule on that rotation, it was a big deal. But you don't see that now. It's just Tuesday, Friday, Monday, Thursday, almost guaranteed nowadays. Very seldom you ever see even maybe a Thursday, Friday, which you'll never probably see, but you don't see the back-to-backs like we used to.
So they played Lakeview first off on Friday in this tip-off tournament. That went to overtime, and then these two games on Saturday, both wins. So Neshannock right now heading into section play. They are 4-0 on the section to start the year. And it's crazy, Tim, the parallels to that team a few years ago when they made it all the way to Hershey for the championship with no seniors on the roster.
Yeah.
How many seniors are on this Neshannock roster? Again, not one. And it's going to start with Jaden Noge and with Peyton Newman, but there's a lot of characters that's going to be talking about on this team.
It's so well coached, as we talk about every year, and it's so ingrained into the system of what is expected of you and how you're going to improve entire time there and anywhere she's been. So I'm not shocked when I don't even need to know. I want to pencil in, Neshannock to have an opportunity to make a run because they are just so well prepared in every way. And when you do that and then you got a Noge. I mean, anytime you have a Noge on your team in basketball or in sports on the girls' side, darn well you have a premium player to build around.
Yeah, and throw in a Newman as well. And,
yes,
all those
take anything away from Peyton.
Right. No, all Seinfeld jokes aside, you're going to have a pretty darn good 1-2 punch right there for sure. And I do appreciate though Coach G and the entire team because all the preseason rankings start coming out. They're basically ranked number one in the WPIL in just about every one of them. They're 1 or 2 in each one, and they're all like, "Really? Us? We have no. We're terrible." It's kind of like the Coach Blunder, like we're not that good. What's going on? So they know that they want to continue to improve. They're not buying into the preseason hype, but yeah, we'll do the hype up for them. They're going to be another team to be reckoned with. Again, you lost one senior from last year's team, and they made it to the WPIL semifinals a year ago. They're going to be a team to watch out for sure. The other teams in Class 2A to touch on. Let's start with Shenango. It's going to be a tough year. Big shout out to Coach O'Hara. Got his first win as the head coach in a victory over New Brighton. But again, a team that's only got 7 or 8 on the roster for the year. Amara DeFrank, she's going to go and play some D3 ball somewhere. But beyond that, there's a lot of fresh faces, new faces, young faces. It's going to be a challenge. But again, I'm going to say for the third time already, go check out those preview show YouTube videos because
those vignettes are important.
Talking with Amara was so it was so awesome because it was the idea of I'm accepting, I'm the teacher of this team basically. I'm definitely the leader of this team. It's not going to be like it was our freshman year when we won a WPIAL championship. We know that. All we care about is being together as a group and as a family and getting better. And that was one of the best leadership interviews that I've ever had a chance to talk with. It was really awesome. When we look at it overall,
I was going to just say, when you talk about leadership, that's exactly what it is. You got to recognize this is the hardest thing in sports. Is you celebrate so much what you did in the past, but you can't bring the past to the future. You can build on the tradition of what you've done, but each year is a new challenge and a new schedule and a new opportunity and new players. Every 4 years, you're going to have a complete new set. So it's one of those things. I mean, she's very intelligent on that level, talking about that way and recognizing that you learn from your experiences. You celebrate what you have achieved, but in 2024, we haven't done anything yet. And we'll figure it out as we go along, how good we can be and where we're going. And that for a 17, 18-year-old is impressive. I don't care who you are. That's the leadership that you're talking about because it's so ingrained into us to look at the past and say, oh, that's what's going to happen in the future. Well, every year's a new new chapter, and we'll find out exactly what they can do. But that's a really impressive way to approach it at her age.
Yeah, for sure. And it's going to be if Shenango, and I think, again, they're going to improve, as Eric was just talking about. You want to be getting better as the year goes along and peaking at the end of the year. And I think that's going to be a team that will keep getting better. Again, when you're so young, you have to just keep on keeping on. But, look at Ella Farrell. She's already got an 18-point game as well. So those two as a 1-2 punch. If Ella's sharp shooting from the outside, and then you have a big Amara DeFrank, 5'11", down low, it's a tough tandem that you're going to have to deal with. But we'll be very interested to see how Shenango progresses again over the course of this year. The other team in Class 2A is Laurel. Coach LaRocco moving over from Shenango to Laurel. His first year now at the Spartans. And Eric, we'll let you talk about this, because in general, I mean, Laurel is in a tough situation. This is now their fourth coach in 4 years, just finding that continuity and again a late jump into the season. But they have 15 players on their roster and a lot of familiar names coming back. They have some high expectations for this Laurel team this year.
I'll get some wins early and see where you kind of fall into place. I mean, I don't think we're going to go through the idiocy of picking teams by eyesight when it comes to the WPIAL basketball tournament like we did football. So they have a chance to make a name for themselves and get some wins early in the season, and see where you shake out in your conference. I think that some of these classes, specifically on the girls' side, I'm not sure are as balanced as they are on the boys' side. We need to find some things out about teams, and I think Laurel sort of fits into that mold right now.
We definitely found something about Cheyenne Tyndall. You want to talk about making a name for yourself, Eric? Look at this one. In the win against Burgettstown earlier this week, about 8 3-pointers and 34 points on the board. She had 8 threes in the first 3 games. She put 8 up in that game alone. So, Tim, again, they got a couple shooters, Cheyenne being one of them, Maylee Hill down low as a big option. Lots of names to work with. And again, I think Coach LaRocco said it perfectly, too. That same thing. We're just going to get better and try to be best in February.
Yeah, we maybe see the changing of the thinking of basketball in general in the last few years where, 3 is greater than 2. And if you can develop a shooter from outside, you have to take advantage of that and get her the ball and get her in open spaces where she can drain it. And so you may have a lower percentage shooting overall as a team, but you're scoring a lot of points because you're getting opportunities. Now, if you're draining 8 threes per ball game, your team's going to be scoring some points. I mean, she's going to be scoring some points, and you're going to create spaces because they're going to have to come out to guard you. You can go inside. And, it's just a kind of combination of if you can develop one side of the ball, you can get the other side working, especially if you can find a shooter. And today's basketball is all about behind the arc. It is designed behind the arc at the high school level, at the college level, even at the NBA level. It is all really about now, more than ever before, about how good of a jump shooter you are. Years ago, it was about how good could you feed the ball inside and work it in and work it out and run and play. Today, it's about moving the ball and finding that opening shooter, and can whoever that basketball player is knock it down.
That's Section 1 in Class 2A. I mean, you got Neshannock and Aliquippa, who are probably going to be considered the front runners. You're going to have Laurel then expected to be in that middle of the road. Between Freedom, Shenango, and Rochester, those are the ones that would probably be battling, we assume, for that 4th place spot. Rochester's 0-4, but 4 very close losses, including one earlier this week against Union. So keep an eye on the Rochester Rams, as they're a team that might be working their way back up the ranks in this Class 2A section. Actually, in their first year, because they did move up, both boys and girls did, from 1A to Class 2A. We'll move up to Class 3A because another team that's fighting the numbers battle is the Mohawk Warriors. 0-2 to start the year, but 2 very difficult battles. One against Laurel, again, a team that we think can be pretty solid this year, and then playing Wilmington that we saw there on Monday night. But, Tim, I really like what Lindsey Bell is trying to instill. You lost basically your 6 top scorers. One of your top returning scorers suffered a knee injury in softball. She won't play this year. So you basically have fresh faces the entire way through. The leading scorer all coming into this year was Reagan Magno. She had 26 career points. You're basically starting from scratch, but you got some young blood, a 23-year-old head coach really trying to get a fire back into this team.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. You got to have some excitement to coach and to get the players going, but they do have some players.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like you said, it is a challenge with the numbers. It's a challenge, getting it in. But you look at the 2 games they played; they were competitive, and they're playing top notch. I mean, when we're talking about taking on Wilmington as a non-conference game, that's impressive.
Yeah,
and you want to build on that though, and you want to challenge a team. And I think those are the things that she's trying to do, and what they want to do as a program. The only way to do it is really just that, one game at a time. Try to get installed everything. Obviously. That's the key. I mean, continuity. If you can grow a program, that means that someone's there, for more than one season. It makes a big difference, for the coaching staff, and they can work with players and develop them. If they don't have that continuity growing, it becomes difficult to really become a contender, for a conference title or make a playoff run.
Yeah, and they have names who are.
They have good players.
They're used to. They're athletes. They're used to winning. I mean, Reagan Magno, the pitcher on the same softball team. Gigi Pizzullo was a starter on the team. McKenna Stewart probably would have been a starter had she not got hurt last year. There's just that I think speaks to volumes right there. Olivia Hare's on the roster as well, and in that rotation. So those are 4 players right there who are used to that championship mentality and would love to get this team back to. Where they were a year ago, being in the playoffs. Now, will it happen this year? It'll be tough, but
I was going to say,
possible.
this is a team you're going to have to pay attention to the second half of the draw. The first half is kind of to learn what you can do and try to build up some wins, like Erica was talking about. Build some confidence. But it's the second game where you're getting the rematch, either on the road or at home. And watch how they play that second game in conference. I think that's going to be really impressive to, really to see the growth of the Mohawk.
And again, the youth of a coach, like everything is going to be brand new as well. But man, the maturity in talking with Coach Bell after that first game, because she basically told me, we lost that game by 25, whatever it was, 26 points to Laurel. We go back on film and we show, hey, look, here's a missed layup. Hey, here was an easy missed assignment that we just forgot about a player in this type of defense. And there were 5 or 6 of those. All of a sudden, it's down to a 12-point game. It's like, look, we're not 28 points worse than Laurel. They're good, but we're not that much worse. This is where you learn, and it all just starts to click.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to say. Is you take the experiences from the game, and then you apply it during the practice. You apply it, to the mental part of the game. How do you get better? And I think this is a team, again, if you really want to grade them, I think the second 10 games of the season is really where you're going to grade them. The first 10 is to learn how to play this style and for this coach. The second 10 is how good can you become?
They're in a section with Our Lady of the Sacred Heart, Stowe Rocks, Riverside, expected to be probably some of the top options. Quaker Valley, I mean, you got to talk about that, Eric, real quick, when you got Mimi Thero, a 6'5", girl that you're going to have to go against and have to game plan against. That'll be fun to watch for sure. And then an Elwood City team that we'll talk about here in a moment. But first off, when we see both Mohawk and Elwood play against Mimi in particular, what kind of fun things are we going to be looking at in how to defend a 6'5" player in the post?
Well, you really can't I'm sorry, but there's a disparaging gap between that at the girls level and the boys level. I think if you have a dominant post player at the female level, chances are you're probably just going to blow by some people. Now you have to have and obviously you have to have another piece with that, a guard, but I think too often, and I've seen it happen too much over the years at the high school level. College is a little bit different, especially when you get into like the D2, D3 range, but at the high school level, if you have a good guard play, but you have that dominant post player, chances are you're going to just rip through everybody. Not saying it's going to happen in this case, but there's a pretty good chance that they're going to win a lot of games just going right with that post. How do you get that player in foul trouble? That's the key to most games. If you're going to go against them, you just got to penetrate. You got to penetrate and hope that the refs are calling it a tight game that night. But yeah, that height at the girls basketball level, that is next to impossible to defend against. That's going to be a rough challenge for everybody, not just in that section, but I think when the playoffs hit too.
I believe she's actually listed as a guard. I mean, she's grown up.
Well, that doesn't surprise me,
I was going to say,
you see now. Yeah, you see now. I mean, especially at the boys level, you see now 6'5" is going to translate to probably a 2 guard or a 3 at the college level.
And that's, again, the dynamic of the 3-part arc. I mean, today, shooting from outside is so much more valuable than having a pivot player down low. Nothing against that. You want that if you have it. And I think you can understand defensively why you want that pivot person down low, because they can rebound the ball, outlet it, and you can get, offenses started. And defensively, you can be such a challenge for teams to deal with. And if you could teach that person, or that player, I should say, to be able to go down and help on defense and be inside instead of being outside all the time, as a wing player or as a 2 guard, yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. But yeah, today it's almost everybody's listed as a guard,
right?
And it's almost like this positionless basketball,
which makes it a lot of fun. I mean, Coach Smiley with the Shannick always was at that kind of mentality. Hey, we can go 5, whatever 5 we want, 5 forwards, 5 point guards, whatever, we can make it happen. Elwood City is the other team I want to talk about. You talk about two-way players. How about two-way coaches at Elwood City? Coach Bradley doing both the boys basketball and football. How about Coach Chris Wise now jumping in with baseball and now taking over his first year coaching the girls team? And they have a nice 1-2 punch and inside-outside game. Kayla Jones, who probably will, barring, hopefully she can play an entire year. If so, she should eclipse the 1,000 career point mark. Delaney Sturgeon, all she did was put up a career-high 31 in a game last week down there on the post. When Delaney is playing, that physical style of basketball, getting the rebounds, getting in there, going up strong, Tim, she is very tough, near impossible to beat. And you put that with a team, Elwood City, man, we saw them a couple times last year just shoot lights out. They're your 3-point arc specialists here in the county.
And that's, getting back to the same thing. You got to take advantage of that. I mean, obviously, 3's greater than 2. You're gonna take your shots from there. You're gonna look for that. But if you can obviously get multiple shots, and be able to run the offense, you're going to be that much better. But again, on the defensive side, that's the key. Can your defense create offense? We've talked about that many times over the years, James. And I don't care what basketball you're looking at, if it's girls basketball, boys basketball, whatever level you're at, can your defense create your offense? Can your defense stop the other team from actually getting shots off where they have a potential of making them? If you're, in a sense, taking the ball away, getting into the passing lanes, and knocking the ball out, or making them work hard to get those shots, and maybe making some steals or forcing some turnovers, man, that's a huge part of basketball, especially at the high school level. I don't care, what competition you're talking about. The team that defensively does that will always have an advantage in my eyes to win a ball game.
Now, Eric, this is a team very similar, though, to Union in terms of you got 4 seniors who have been with the team for a while, a couple off the bench who have been with the team for a while, but it's a very short bench overall, only 9 or 10, again, on the roster. What's going to be the biggest key for teams like Elwood and Union that can be and should be very competitive, but, obviously foul trouble, but, how do you preach that, I guess, and practice those things to make sure they don't happen?
Make it that it's not an issue by just outscoring everybody. I mean, to me, it's as simple as that. I mean, you outclass your opponent, and you get up on them early enough where it's not really an issue. And, you don't want to obviously run anything up on anybody, but that's going to be the equalizer. And, I sometimes, at least that I've seen over the years, and I didn't really notice it too much here last year with the exception of maybe one playoff game, but when a ref is calling a game tight, you remember last year how tight that Burrell Mohawk WPIL game was, and it basically took Mohawk out of sync right away. They almost played scared in a way because they didn't want to attack people or get people in foul trouble and things like that. And you can't do that. You just have to go. I mean, you have to just push tempo. You have to make sure the fouls aren't going to be an issue. You have to outrun everybody. You can't shy away. I think you have to set the precedent early in a game that this is how we're going to play. And we're not going to adjust to how you call it. You're going to adjust how you call it based on how we play. And unfortunately, we don't see that too much with the officials. We see them sort of dictate how the game is going to go. And I think that teams can change that by basically just right from the get-go. This is how we're playing. You accept it. You call it based on how we play, not the other way around.
Final team we need to talk about on the girls' side is Newcastle. They're in Class 5A, but they're off to a 4-0 start to the year. A couple of lopsided victories on the year, though, to start the year. 2 wins against Shenango. Again, we talked about how it's going to be a long year potentially for a very small and young squad there. But how about a 59-1 win over Northgate? Yeah, you heard that right. 59-1. And then, Ambridge, 48-2 in that game. So getting a couple wins before, obviously, a very difficult section schedule. But got to talk about Rihanna Boyce real quick. Averaging 20 points per game so far this year. She is on pace that she might hit 1,000 points at some point this year as well. And kind of the same sort of story of she's been there since her freshman year. Now as a senior, has a couple of other options around her. Might that kind of make things a little bit easier in terms of, not being, I don't want to say a one-trick pony because they're certainly not, but making it so that you can't just focus and stack on just Rihanna, who's a great inside presence, but also a great shooter too.
Well, that's the key, to have your, if you have your Batman, you need a Robin.
Mm-hmm.
You need somebody who can at least make the defense be focused on. If you can take away one player and the rest of them are not good shooters or not good ball handlers and it can turn over the ball, you're really shutting down that team. So you need somebody step up. You need multiple players on a better team who can do that. And I think that's the key, because that will create space. Space creates opportunities in basketball. So I think that's really what, Newcastle will need. And then we'll see, it's early.
Well, it is early, and when section play comes, I think a lot of people are still expecting that Newcastle.
But Boyce, we know she can play. I mean, we've watched her over the years. Mm-hmm. We know how good she is. But the key is, can they develop somebody else who could be a ball handler, who can then maybe penetrate and be able to take some of the focus off of Boyce and give more depth to this team. And that's the key right now. I mean, competition, we have to evaluate exactly early in the season, but wins are wins.
Yeah.
You move on. It's something to build on. And that's what that program needs more than anything. It's something positive to build on. It's been a long time. And they've had talent. They just haven't necessarily been able to put it all together during a basketball season. And
during even a game, playing a full 32 minutes. That was one of the things Coach Kerr was telling about for sure with that, as they start 4-0 on the year. But again, section play coming up in the next few days. Most teams will be starting section play tomorrow with the beginning of the section and region play. Wilmington in region plays Lakeview tomorrow. That's actually a game on Mercer County radio to have that one. We'll have Union's opener against Aquinas. We'll have the full schedules for you the rest of the year, as we'll be covering all those schools over the course of the year. We're going to step aside here on our basketball preview show for the start of the 2024-25 season. When we come back, we'll dissect the boys' teams here on the Lawrence County SportsNet Beyond the Scoreboard podcast. It's delivered by Penn Ohio Bottled Water.
I love what I do because coming in every day is different.
How can you not enjoy these kids coming up and hugging you and giving you these great smiles all throughout the day?
Seeing the progress that our kids make every single day is one of the reasons I love coming to school.
What should we do? We have fun.
LCAP Early Learning Centers is hiring. Help empower young minds in Lawrence County and become a superhero today. Apply at lcap.org.
Don't get left out to dry. Call the Penn Ohio Bottled Water Company for the fastest and most efficient bottled water delivery service in the area. Penn Ohio offers bottled water ranging from 16.9-ounce bottles to 5-gallon jugs, perfect for your next event or office water cooler system. Also, don't forget to ask about their custom labeling options. Visit PennOhioBottledWater.com for more information and to get a quote on their delivery services. Whether it's at home, in the office, or on the sidelines, Penn Ohio has you covered.
Yeah, don't you get left hung out. I'll get it right eventually. Just stay dry. Take the umbrella. Watch out for that wonderful snowstorm coming through as well. That came down in a hurry this afternoon in
There's another one
Western
scheduled
PA.
for the overnight, so be careful in the morning.
Well, watch out. I'm not going to say the 2-hour delay word or anything like that, but
it could possibly be in play.
I think Tim's got a better chance of that over the border in Ohio. They're a little more okay with that sort of thing.
School systems are. You're right about that. I don't disagree.
Before we talk about the boys' teams here as we go on our basketball preview show here for the season, do want to give a shout out to our November LCAP Team of the Month, the Wilmington Greyhounds, winning their first District 10 title in football since 2020. Big shout out to them. They ended up winning that game in a dogfight. It was against Greenville, winning that game 26-21. They ended up falling in the next round of the state playoffs to the eventual state runner-ups in Port Allegheny. Didn't get a chance to ask Eric about that, but District 9, incredible what they pulled off this year. Only 3 times ever had a District 9 team made it to the championship game. They sent 2 this year, and they defeated WPL champions in the semis, Eric, by mercy rule. Both Port Allegheny and Central Clarion did. Incredible.
Yeah, really excellent accomplishment. I think that there were, Port Allegheny had a little bit of a rough time. Central Clarion's game was fantastic. I think that if they probably could have redone that last, I don't know, about a minute or so, maybe 2 minutes, might have been a timeout called on defense to preserve some time, and there might have been a shot that they could have won that game. But Jace Ferguson was great to watch. That was good. That crowd for the 2A game, by the way, was the largest crowd of the weekend for any individual games. The numbers aren't great.
Impressive.
We without tuning our own horn, I mean, we did pretty good as far as viewership numbers go compared to the last couple seasons. But that 2A crowd was the largest of the weekend. And it honestly felt like there was probably like quadruple the amount of fans there. That's how good that crowd was.
It's awesome to hear. And you mentioned with Central Clarion, but you also got to give a shout out with Port Allegheny because that Aiden Bliss, I believe it's official now, most rushing attempts in a state championship game. 47 rushing attempts in that game for Port Allegheny. Oh, he's back next year as well. He averaged 30 points per game in a football uniform. 30 points a game. Well, I don't think we've. Well, we'll see if anybody can get up to that 30-point per game mark here on the hardwood. But again, big shout out Wilmington as your November LCAP Team of the Month. Also got to shout out Mohawk's distance runner in Jackson Shadle because not only did he win his second straight state championship, he just competed in the Nike Cross Country Nationals this past weekend. Out of 200 runners across the country, he finished third in the regionals a couple of weeks ago. And then out of the 200 runners at nationals, he finished 66th. So very impressive. He's in the top third of that incredible group of runners, the top runners in the entire country. It's going to be tough to say and prove otherwise, but he's probably the best distance runner that Lawrence County has seen. So very naturally and very deserving as your Red Zone November Athlete of the Month. No female Athlete of the Month. We didn't have any females really competing in their sports in November. So like last year, we'll have a dual female Athlete of the Month coming up at one of the future months coming up here for the school year. But again, big shout out Jackson Shadle and Wilmington football winning your November awards. Who will be part of the December award winners? Well, let's figure that one out. Let's start in Class 6A and work our way back down. Let's start with Newcastle, a team that is in uncharted waters here, Tim. We've been following them closely for the last near decade. Kind Coach Blundo doesn't miss the playoffs. Well, they did for the first time last year. Only graduate one senior, but you got now Ralphie as a senior, Ralphie Blundo, who averaged over 20 a game last year. You got Damian Harrison as the number 2 threat. But those might be number 2 and 3 this year because you have a freshman in Kai Cox. Yes, the younger brother of Drew and Sheldon Cox, and he's coming up strong right out of the gate, averaging 19 points per game in the first 4 games of the year. There's really been only one other player that has started from the get-go, and it was Isaiah Boyce. Kai Cox doing it right away as well.
You got to give him a lot of credit. I mean, that's not easy to crack Ralph Blundo's lineup as a freshman. And we've seen others earn their way on as the season progressed, but we've never seen him, as you mentioned, Isaiah Boyce, right out of the get-go, basically be in the starting lineup for 4 years. Cox has a chance to do something special. I mean, obviously, having another outlet besides Ralphie is going to be huge for them. I think last year, I don't want to call it a fluke, but it was just one of those, sooner or later, they're going to fight their way and not be able to get in. And the challenges for them being the smallest team in 6A is difficult at times. And I mean, the challenge, they take it on. They don't complain about it. They know what they have to do. It's not going to get easier this year for them on that level, but we also know that just what they achieve each year and how they play, and usually how they can make the Nikai High Fieldhouse an advantage is going to be really crucial. If they can hold the home games, last year they couldn't. They lost some home games last year, and that really made a big difference. But if they can reestablish Nikai High Fieldhouse as a place where teams come to lose, that's going to be important for them. And I think that's really going to be the stepping stone this year for them to get back into the Whipple playoffs.
It's a jam-packed section. A lot of 5A teams, Eric, moving up into Class 6A overall. But I mean, a tough section when you got Butler, Fox Chapel, North Allegheny, Pine Ridge and Seneca Valley, where the teams Newcastle battled with last year to make it in the playoffs. Throw in Woody High and North Hills in this section. It's 6A basketball. It's going to be a dogfight each and every night. But Eric, it sounds like Newcastle's not the only team that has freshmen who are really stepping up right away, especially in Class 6A basketball. So kind of a turning of the guards in that regard too. A lot of youngsters getting on the court immediately.
Yeah, we're seeing that. I still think Upper St. Clair is going to be the favorite, and they, as far as I can tell, they haven't started the season great, but Central Catholic, I think, is going to be there, and those two are in the second division too. So this really seems like, from a Newcastle perspective, anyway, it seems like a good year to get back in the playoff mix. And those games with Butler are going to be huge. I don't know how Butler keeps churning out these good teams. I mean, I understand.
It's amazing, isn't it?
You're right. Like having like a Kearney and a Morton, come through there, sort of like a once in a generation thing. But it seems like that program that was on the come up with those guys coming through it, and they've just stayed there ever since. So I'm really curious to see how that team stacks up in 6A. It sort of seems like Newcastle's going to have its work cut out for it once we get the playoffs, if they get in this year. Upper St. Clair, once again, it probably is going to be the heavy favorite in this 6A class. Post presence, obviously we know that they won the thing last year, but there's winnable games here. I'm going to be interested to see, when they in the second 6A division, with Mount Lebanon, how they're going to piece things together, because they had a pretty good team last year. They lost a lot. Still, again, want to see North Allegheny too. Want to see Central Catholic. Want to see some of these teams. Who's going to try to wrangle a top spot away from somebody. And but as far as Newcastle goes, just handle your business. I mean, that's what it is. Handle your business and win your games against Butler. And I tend to agree with Tim. I mean, I've only been there for one game, and that was a neutral site game last year, but that venue, if that place is filled to capacity and that program is winning, is going to be a very tough place for opponents to come.
Well, Eric won't see him on Friday. Tim and I will, but we'll get Eric a game at the Fieldhouse for sure once this season goes along. No doubt about it. We'll see. Tim and I will have to rock, paper, scissors, though, for who's gonna who will step out for that one. Let's jump down to Class 3A. By the way, that's against North Hills on Friday. the Newcastle tipping off their section season. In Class 3A, talk real quick about Elwood City. Aaron Lake is going to be the guy who's going to kind of turn into having to replace Joseph Roth. I mean, Coach Bradley said it perfectly. You can't replace Joseph Roth. You can try to recreate him in the aggregate, very Moneyball style here, but all things said and done, I mean, Aaron Lake is averaging a double-double to start the year, 17 points and 11 rebounds. He's going to be the big force. Chucky Schweinsberg hit 4 or 5 threes in the game last night against Laurel. That's what they need, is the outside shooting, and they can still be and probably will be very competitive.
I like Lake. I remember watching him last year and seeing what he could bring to every game that he competed in. And then Schweinberg is another guy who has the ability, to continue to grow. I think Coach Bradley's going to have a good challenging on him. I mean, we've seen him last year really bring that team along and get some players involved other than Roth. And I think the long term he was doing that, thinking that, it's a great thing to have a player like a Roth on your team, and you're going to use that to your advantage, but you also have to develop a team. And I think that's what he was doing last year all season long. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing some of the fruits of that early in the season here. And they do have some players that they can really build around. And again, this is a team. I said this earlier in the podcast. I'll say it again. I'm going to judge them the second half of the season more than I'm going to judge them the first half of the season. It is the return visit or the return where they go on the road and take on that sectional foe that I'm going to pay most attention to, because I think that's really where the challenge is going to be. But this is a team that you just want to watch incrementally throughout the season. And then once you get to about, the 10th, 11th game of the year, that's when you want to really start turning it on and seeing where they lie.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it wasn't just Roth. There were 4 other seniors on that team from last year. But, Chris Smiley is the leading scorer coming back. He's kind of running the show. And Eric, I think it's impressive. You got 6 players already who have been in double figures. So, again, you're getting, 7, 8 deep pretty consistently, but they're all contributing, not just, role players, but contributing on the scoreboard. You're going to need to balance out and not get 30 from one guy like you had with Roth.
Yeah, that's a huge key for them. They would just pretty much defer to him whenever they needed a bucket. And I mean, he would go get it. And I think that, important for that team, would love to talk to Coach Bradley and see what they did over the summer, how much they played together. I know he, was balancing that out probably between summer league and then the football team, obviously was what it was this past season. But, the mentality of that program to not just defer to one guy who is going to bail you out every single time you need something. We kind of saw it down the stretch in their playoff game against Mohawk. I mean, Roth was good in that game, but they needed big shots from other guys who were not able to make them. And Mohawk were more balanced with Fadden and Rona and Drew Rona and whoever else was on the floor. They got something from just about everybody who was out there, and that's going to be a little bit of a scheme change for Elwood City. But I'll be curious to see how they do. I think they'll be fine. I don't. I don't know if they're going to be rewriting any kind of record books or anything like that, but I think their balance, if they can maintain that, is going to be a huge reason why they're successful this season for sure.
Oh, you just mentioned 2 names. It's insane. So there have been 4 games already this year where a Lawrence County player has scored over 30 points in a game. One of them is Union's Lucas Stanley. We'll get to that in a minute. One of them is Aaron Lake, who dropped 31 earlier in the year. The other 2 are Fadden and Rona. Not Jay Rona, Drew Rona. Drew dropped 32 in an overtime loss to Deer Lakes last night, and Bobby Fadden 33 in a win against Mercyhurst Prep at the Mechanic tournament.
Did Lucas Stanley do any of it from the seat of his pants? So that's the question.
No, he did not. That one's going to go down for a long time. For sure. Now, if only he would do his math homework from the seat of his... No, we're not going there. Well, he can yell at me tomorrow for that one. We'll talk about Stanley more in a minute. But yeah, Drew Rona kind of being maybe even a better shooter than his older brother, Jay. I think Jay was able to get to the hoop a lot better, at least what we've seen. I mean, Drew's only a sophomore, still a long way to go. But you got 2 guys on this team in Fadden and Rona who are both over 20 points per game here in a moment. Or at this point, 4 games into the year, and Joey Nail kind of as being that third option at 8 points a game as well. 2-2, couple of tough losses, one to Neshannock and one to Deer Lakes, Tim. But this is a team that I think people are expecting them after last year and the guys they lost to drop down. But man,
understandable. But like you mentioned, we seen Drew last year, make his appearance. During late in the season and during the playoff run, and I think what you're going to see now is an opportunity for him to grow. And then you have Fadden. Bobby Fadden is just such a special athlete to watch, and he can do so many different things. And this is a team that has a chance just to grow. I mean, I think they're going to be challenged all year. I think they're going to lose a lot of close games. And I think that's going to be tough mentally on them. But the question is, when they do lose those tough, can they then overachieve and come back from them? And I think that's really going to be the key. I mean, at times they're going to be in games, but they maybe not be able to climb that mountain. But if they can get there and get a couple upsets along the way and build some confidence, they have a chance to be an interesting team because they do have enough athletes. They really, truly do. That was a deep team last year. For what they had. And you're seeing some of that depth now become starters and opportunities. We'll see if they can develop some of the younger guys underneath to support them. But I think that's where, the Warriors are at.
Yeah, Coach O'Leary really likes this sophomore squad, especially. A lot of those guys are going to start to rotate themselves in. But Eric, you kind of alluded to it earlier about wanting to be peaking at the right time. 2 years ago, Mohawk only had 1 or 2 losses all year. Ended up losing 3 straight in the postseason and consolation games. Last year, they lost a couple of close games early. They won some close games early. These tough losses early can only help them down the stretch.
Yeah, I think it will. And, I'm a believer if you got a guy like Fadden, I mean, you're going to be in just about every game as long as he has a marginally on night shooting. I mean, he's not going to hit 70% every game out, but as long as he can be pretty consistent and sort of lead this team. But, there was a couple of stretches last year where you saw them bring along Drew Rona, like slowly but surely as the season went on. And I think that they can really rely on him as a number 2 scoring option. I think you'll see him sort of rise to the occasion. This is going to be a really tough conference for them because of Aliquippa being in there. And that's a problem. I mean, having to tangle with them twice, but the flip side of that then is there probably is no better team that they will see in their class all year long than that team twice. So if they make the most of those 2 games and having to go there once, they come to Mohawk once, I think that they can gain something out of that because they won't play anybody better. I think Aliquippa is probably, I don't know so far. I'm not diving into basketball. I'm just still kind of digesting football a little bit, but I think when all's said and done, I think Aliquippa is going to be one of those teams in Hershey, or at least in the Final Four, with a chance to go back to Hershey when all's said and done. So they get them twice. I mean, they'll just make the most of your opportunities and see if you can make some hay against those teams, and then you'll see nobody better after that.
Yeah, for sure. And they'll get kick-started. Mohawk traveling to Riverside, and Elwood City hosting Freedom. But you're right. That's Aliquippa is going to be the top team to be watching for sure. But if you can sneak one against them, and especially you can do that early in the year, I think is going to be the best opportunity to do so. And I think especially this Mohawk team has all the pieces to potentially make that one happen. Let's drop down to 2A, and it's a brand new Class 2A section. It's Section 4, and man, is it loaded with county teams. You got Laurel, you got Neshannock, who's moved down from Class 3A. You got Shenango, who's there again. Then you got Union moving up from Class 1A, the smallest Class 2A school in the WPIL, but that's going to make it a lot of fun because you're going to have county matchups basically every week. Almost every Tuesday or Friday night, you're going to have at least one county against county matchup, which is going to be really awesome to watch. Let's start with that Union team moving up from Class 1A, because you just mentioned, Eric, you have from the seat of his pants, Mr. Lucas Stanley. You're talking about a team that lost a lot of seniors. I think their top 8 scoring options, other than Lucas Stanley, all gone from a year ago. The top returning scorer in terms of previous year points is Jordan Kelly with 28. So you got to find somebody new to be able to take the legwork of the scoring. And Landon Eckert has certainly jumped out in a big way. He's got 12 3-pointers on the year. But how about the two football guys coming back out in Maddox Thompson and Jamel Mitchell? I mean, Eric, that's huge. You got two athletes coming back and immediately starting and doing some big things after not playing hoops in a few years.
Well, Mitchell's going to give you size too, which you need to have at that level. Again, Stanley's much like Fadden. They're different style of players, but I think anytime you have a guy that can score like Lucas can, then you're going to be in just about any ball game. And they need to find a rotation. They need to stick with that rotation and let it develop. And there's pieces that are missing there with obviously senior leadership like Braylon Thomas, who's gone. That's a big factor. I mean, he's a quarterback of your team literally on and off the field, but I think Lucas is ready to take that role. There's obviously trust between the head coach and the best player on the team. This is an interesting team. They really are an interesting team. I don't know how far they're going to go, but they're going to be in the mix. Stanley is going to be able to get them, wins by himself, but then it's just kind of leading those other guys along. And then when you have to defer to them in a big spot, having them take over. And for Union's sake, you hope that they can develop that pretty quick. And if they can, they've got a chance.
Yeah, a lot of two sophomores starting, two first-year players basically starting with Thompson and Mitchell, and then Stanley. So you really got four fresh faces out there, and plus a couple of freshmen who are going to be in the rotation.
You look at what
now. Maddox Thompson will be available for the postseason for them if they make it.
Yes,
correct. That is not
correct.
an issue like it was on the football field.
Correct.
Right.
He is available. Yes. Good clarification there. Yeah.
I think what's going to be key is the two that you're talking about is what they can. They don't necessarily have to be scorers, but can they learn to play defense, get rebounds, and can they outlet the ball? And can they play, within the system? I think that's really going to be key. You've got two good athletes there, and you got one with real great size.
Yeah.
So if you can keep him out of foul trouble, because he hasn't played that many basketball minutes, and if he can learn to position himself to get some rebounds and then get it out to Stanley, or and get them moving, I think that's going to be key. Can he get back on defense? I mean, these are the question marks, without watching him play is going to be important. I mean, I know Maddox can do it. Maddox is a fast kid and has the athletic ability to do it. And I think, but the key is, can you get those two to play defense and rebound the ball and really limit your opponents to one or two shots in a rotation with the ball? And I think those two could be really keys to that, because if they can do that and get the ball out to a Stanley and get him into the offense and get everybody involved, then you're going to have that opportunity. But I think defensively, those are the two that you're really going to look and see if they can do it. The key is, can they stay out of foul trouble? Because if they can stay out of foul trouble, then they're going to play more minutes and be more of an effective player. They don't have to get 10 rebounds a game, but if they're getting 4 or 5 key rebounds and being able to outlet the ball and be a present, really altering shots, that could be a big difference.
I definitely should have challenged Jamel Mitchell to our little race there before he got into basketball shape and was still in football shape. That's a my bad on my part there, but we digress. Union will kick off their section season. They're 5-0 to start the year non-section play. They will host Laurel on Friday. Let's flip it over to this Laurel team. Already more wins this year than they had all of last year. A 2-20 season a year ago, but a lot of pieces back. Lucas Santini as the top scorer from a year ago. Right now, though, he's scoring option number 3. You got a team that has a lot of size, Eric, but a lot of athleticism with that size. It's going to be interesting to see how this diverse team in terms of they can go 3 bigs, really old school of a 3-4-5, or they can kind of play it more of like a 3 or 4 guard system depending on who's in that rotation. Another lineman, Jaden Iorio, in there as one of the top scoring options, and Mason Ernst, a sophomore who's a big threat. But those two, especially as kind of the beef down low to be the scoring threats, really makes it again easier on the guards, right, Eric?
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I mean, again, post presence, you want to have that. I think that anytime you can control the paint, it opens things up for the outside. And like Tim said earlier, it's such an outside game right now. It's almost borderline annoying how much teams shoot from the outside, but it is what it is. It's modern basketball. It's, it's not like the defensive minded game it was when I was growing up, but Yeah, I really think that size can help for sure. And if they've got people that can shoot, then that's going to open things up from the outside.
Yeah, and that's probably, if there is a concern, it would probably be that, just haven't hit quite enough from downtown in those games yet. We'll see if they can flip the script there at the Cavelli Fieldhouse. Lee and Jay Moan will be on the call for that one. Laurel against Union, excuse me there. A couple of milestone notes I forgot to mention. Union, Lucas Stanley got his 1,000th career point in the first game of the year. That was also Coach Stanley's 500th career game coached, and also his 250th win while at Union. So big-time milestones already to start the year for the U and for the Stanleys. The other team I think that's kind of flying under the radar is Shenango, because, Tim, we were talking about it right before we got on the air. You lose one of the program's all-time leading scorers, number 3 all-time. You got a brand-new coach, but somebody who's been with the system, played in the system. Now he's the head coach of it. And you got 8 seniors on the team. It's kind of like the Joseph Roth effect. You can't replace them all at once, but you can kind of spread the wealth.
And sometimes, same message, new voice makes a big difference to a team. Mm-hmm. And this is an opportunity where I think you're going to see that, because there's continuity, even though it's a brand new coach. But it's he's going to probably be preaching the same message, but it's a different voice, a different way of presenting it, a different way to get the players' attention. And a lot of times players respond to that. Mm-hmm. And, it's nothing necessarily different from the previous way the program was run, but it's a new voice. And that new voice usually can, excite a team, especially a team that had such a difficult run last year at times. I mean, they seem to be ready to make that leap in, and they couldn't quite get over that hump. And they did have one of the best scorers in the county last year and stuff like that. So this will be maybe a more even scoring, each and every week. But I think the key there is just, the same message, different voice. Let's see how that, really pans out this year for them.
Yeah, and Eric, Coach Ches told me that it's going to be, some things that are the same, but a lot of new as well. So it's not that, you can go and use last year's game plan over and over again if you're a coach in this section, right? You got to you don't know what's coming at you really with a new coach in there.
No idea. You have no idea, and there's no film on it. So these coaches that scout these things and look for tendencies or whatever. I mean, it's going to take probably 6-7 games for opponents to get down to that. You're not going to be able just to watch one game, adjust to any kind of scheme or whatever. That's going to be a rapidly, hopefully for their sake, rapidly evolving situation as far as what style they want to play, what defense they play, how they match up, all that. And it's going to take probably the second go for teams to catch on to that. And by that point, you hope that you have your second and third level as far as your game plan goes. But that'll be an interesting thing to watch the whole season.
Shenango will start their section play on Friday as well with a trip to Southside Beaver. And then actually we'll catch them in both their games coming up the following week as they will take on both Neshannock and Laurel. Let's talk about the Lancers here real quick. Moving down from 3A, so no more of those Neshannock-Mohawk legendary matchups, but we expect they're going to go. I mean, we haven't had a Neshannock Union section matchup probably since I was in high school, and those were always complete bloodbaths, no matter what the records actually showed. Oh, so beautiful, just 5 miles away. And I'll tell you what, you guys just talk about the 3-ball, but here's another team that is working it from the inside out. Look at Tony Parada, again, an offensive lineman in football season, right now leading the way with 16 points per game. Really goes well with the outside shooting that you get from a Davey Quad, a Talon Anderton, and a Jake Rind. This Neshannock team typically goes 4 guards, but when your one big is Tony Parada, he didn't play all last year. Tim, can you imagine if you had him in that mix?
I'm sure they thought about that all year long, But Neshannock is a program that you always just pencil in to be right there, challenging. Mm-hmm. And I said that, off air before we got started. I says right away, first thing you do is pencil in Neshannock because the competitiveness of these kids. So what they have achieved and what they're going to do. But be able to get something, in the pivot inside, they could break out and if they can get that positioning going, then it's going to give the outside shot available. And if you develop that, it's going to give you that combination. And can you go inside to go out? Can you go outside to go in? And it's going to be key. And more than anything, it will create penetration, because you can get everyone collapsing on the inside. You throw it out, and then you're racing into the lane, and you're going to get players out of position.
It means a lot, too, when I mentioned there's no more Mohawk battles in section, but they did play in the tip-off tournament at Neshannock. And, by the way, Neshannock beat them by 26 points. So Eric laying down the lumber right away. Parada with a double-double in that game.
Wow.
This is probably the most balanced team that we have in the area. I mean, and also the team that likely brings the most back. Maybe not in terms of individual punch like a Lucas Stanley or a Bobby Fadden, but as far as overall talent, I mean, Anderton, you got Quat, you got Parada, Gino's back, all these guys that were so good for that team last year. Now, I'll tell you the one thing that I want to see from them, though. And if Coach Corey's listening to this, he's probably going to give me some bull on Friday night. But I thought in their playoff game last year that they kind of, for lack of a better term, I think they kind of fell apart a little bit. I'm talking when we got to the state level. And I just didn't think that they played their best game at that point, and they didn't look sharp. They came back, in that consolation game against Mohawk, and that was a fantastic back and forth game. They were up for it. The crowd was amped up for it and all that. But then you go on the road, you get in the playoff, and I think it was Franklin that they played in the first round last season. And I just sense like a couple things went wrong for them early in that game, and they just sort of like threw their hands up like, well, what are we supposed to do? And I don't want to see that, and I don't think you will see that. I think you're going to see a hungry team. I think, quite frankly, you're going to see a couple of pissed-off players, too, like Gino Mazzocco, because they're upset the football season ended the way it did, and they want to get some kind of hardware or play for some kind of championship, and I think that's going to sting for a little bit, and that's sort of what I want to see. I want to see a little bit of an edge with this team the whole way through. I want to see what they did to Mohawk the whole way through the season. Because if something along the line causes them to sort of like deviate from that, I don't know that they recover from it as easily as they could with the amount of talent that they have there. So I want to see that killer instinct the entire season.
Well, they get to take that killer instinct right off the bat as they will host Olsh tomorrow. Yes, do not look at the schedule. The schedule says at Our Lady of the Sacred Heart. It is no longer at Olsh. So Our Lady of the Sacred Heart volleyball season, Tim, we were talking about this. They had no home court for the entire year because the gym was getting basically redone. Found out in the middle of the project that it was worse than expected, and it took longer. Now basketball season also is going to be affected. All their games are going to be played either at Moon or Southside, and apparently neither one was available for this date, so they flip-flopped the dates. So Neshannock now will host Olsh in what a lot of people are considering probably the top two teams in the section. So, Eric, just, I know you haven't gotten fully into the X's and O's of this first one, but, just talk about what you would expect to see, especially when it's a quote-unquote section championship style game in the first section game of the year.
Well, let's see how Neshannock handles it right off the bat. I mean, let's see what they come out with. Olsh has played pretty well, at least from what I can tell, early in the season. And let's get a little bit of adversity for Neshannock. Let's see how they handle it. Let's see how they start the game. I'll be curious really with the first 3 to 4 minutes of that game, how physical they are, how much they get up and down the floor, the shot selection, if it's smart. I want to see all those things. I want them to try to channel what would be a March or February game into something into late December. And that's sometimes tough to do. You don't always know because you don't have a feel for how the season is. You don't have a feel for your opponents. The second time through, you might play them better or worse, whatever the case. But I really want to see them kind of treat this game like it's for the section, like it's actually a March game. I want to see them play with a little bit of intensity, both teams really. And, whoever can show it the longest is going to be the one that wins.
Right up the road, going to give a shout out real quick before I forget to the Crane Room Grill. Every Thursday night during hoop season, by the way, they're going to do that winning word combination like we did for football season. So if you go in on Thursday night after the game, again, all the section openers for the girls on Thursday night, go in, say the word basketball, and you'll get your free Crane Chips appetizer after the game. Again, that's on Thursday night after the game. I have a feeling we'll have our meetup there on Friday as well when we have 3 games all in the area. Again, we have the Neshannock against Olsh game. We'll have Union hosting Laurel, and then the Newcastle versus North Hills. Again, that is an audio-only broadcast by request of our friends at Newcastle Area School District. We have one final team to talk about, and we're talking about the Wilmington boys basketball. We have not really had a chance to do that, honestly, in 3 years because, well, they haven't won games. But ending a 35-game losing streak with a opening game victory to start the year against Environmental Charter, and then they backed that up with a overtime victory over Commodore Perry. So Wilmington 2-0 to start the year. They're out of that juggernaut Class 3A section, Tim. It's a much more reasonable section that they're going to be able to compete in all these games this year. At the very least, compete. Coach Marmo expects wins out of this team in section play. When it starts with Freddie Z, you saw him on the football field. He's averaging 26 a game right now, number 3 in the county.
He's a fun athlete to watch. I can't wait to see him on the basketball court this year and see what he can do. But I think that's the key. They ended it, right at the beginning. It doesn't linger into the season. And then they backed it up with a win, a tough win, an overtime win. It wasn't just, a team that not necessarily could compete. So I think those are 2 important things that they've got challenged with right away. A, they ended the losing streak, and B, then they backed it up and now actually have, quote unquote, the first winning streak that they had. And it was a difficult game. You had to go to overtime to get it done. So you were challenged the entire game. I think those are really important things. And it's, again, small steps. When you have a team or a program that has not had success in a long time, now that has an opportunity to, something to build. And you can't get too far ahead of yourself. You can't get too far behind. You almost have to, be like a duck, let the water roll off your back and get ready for the next game. The Hounds just got to do that. They got to take it one step at a time. They're going to get challenged. They're going to get a game where things don't go right and they get blown out. They're going to have to let that go and get back into, the mentality that they have right now. And I think that's going to be the challenge. It's going to be a lot of mental problem in the game, and then we'll see how they physically play. But getting that losing streak out of the way, creating their first winning streak, two really big positives to start the season.
Big positive to start the season here for us on Lawrence County SportsNet Beyond the Scoreboard podcast. There it is, the preview for all 16 teams. We're not going to go like we did in football season. We're not going to go on an every week basis. For the most part, it's probably going to be every other week. Once we get close to the end of the regular season, we'll probably have a little bit more of a weekly consistency as the games become even more important as we try to figure out playoffs. So stay with us. This will probably be it definitely will be the only one before Christmas. We might do a little mini show between Christmas and New Year's, but then we'll pick it up full force on the other side in the year 2025. But it is awesome that we have essentially 2 full weeks of games and really a week and a half of section games before we even get to the holiday break. So these games mean a lot.
They're
right
building
off
blocks.
the get-go.
They're huge. And as you get into section play, as we do this week, it just magnifies.
Well, gentlemen, since we won't see each other, at least on podcast version, until after the holidays, a happy holiday and safe holiday break to each of you and everybody watching out there. I'm going to end the show with a question for each of you, and we'll start with Eric. A holiday tradition that you or your family does that is something you look forward to each year around holiday time.
Oh, that's a good one. A little bit different this year because we're doing it the weekend before, since the holidays in the middle of the season or middle of the week, and I'll be traveling to go spend it with family. We like to do, and I think this is kind of like a pretty popular one. We like to do Chinese food on Christmas Eve.
Ooh. Oh, there you go.
As long as you're not chopping the head off the duck right in front of us.
No, we're not doing that. We're trying to find it'll be easier this year because we're gonna do ours on a Saturday this year, so it's gonna be a lot easier to actually partake in that. But usually we just find a local place and get it early and have at it.
So funny enough, I actually just stumbled upon this on social media a couple days ago. Found out that scene from Christmas Story where they go to that restaurant and they chop the head off the duck. The mother, I can't think of the actress's name. She did not know that was coming, so her reaction was 100% genuine. I am not a Christmas Story fan by any stretch of the imagination. I'm all about Christmas Vacation over Christmas Story, but I'm definitely going to watch this year just so I can watch that and knowing that it's coming. Tim, how about on your end for a tradition?
Tradition is, our family, and being Italian, what a shock here. Christmas Eve dinner is huge. Obviously, a big Italian dinner with the 7 fishes and, the squid, the spaghetti, and the whole deal. So, it is my favorite dinner of the year. And it is without great. It's just one of those great things. You get the family together and you enjoy a traditional meal.
The two traditions I got to go with for me is it's kind of half Thanksgiving, half Christmas, but we cook a turkey on Christmas, which is not as common anymore. But the way that we cook the turkey is so different. It actually was listed in the Weber Grill instruction manual. If you still buy a Weber Grill, it's still in there. Basically, you cook it on a charcoal grill.
Oh, wow.
And I guarantee you will never have a more juicy turkey in your life, even juicier than if you were smoking it. So highly recommend. Try it out. It's very mathematical. You stuff the turkey, you add coals every half an hour, and you go 13 minutes per pound, and it'll be the best turkey you've ever tasted. I personally guarantee it. The other new tradition is the in-laws always have some sort of holiday hootenanny type deal on Christmas Eve, some sort of theme, and we actually just got the theme that it's going to be a beatnik Christmas Eve this year. So I got to go shopping for that one and figure out what the outfit's going to be. So some fun holiday traditions. We hope everybody out there has a safe and happy holiday season as well, but we hope you tune in for some more fun in the next 2 weeks leading up to the holiday season, because we'll have plenty of games. Again, the Union girls game on Thursday against Aquinas, triple header game on Friday with Newcastle hosting North Hills, Neshannock hosting Olsh, and Laurel traveling to Union. Next week we'll have Bocce on the net on Tuesday, and then we'll have games on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday for the Hoops World. I think that about does it. I hope that about does it. I'll give another shout out to our friends at Penn Ohio Bottled Water for everything they've done for us. Big thanks to them for sponsoring us here as well. For Eric Thomas, Tim Continence, I'm saying James Dotson. Thanks for joining us on Beyond the Scoreboard.
The gold ball headed home to Newcastle.
This is the Lawrence County SportsNet.